Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Character Inspiration with CalvyCalv. So today, I'm skipping Paladin because I recently did Paladin, I think only 2 weeks ago. So I don't want to do Paladin, human Paladin, so close to a half-orc Paladin. So most likely, I'll just hop to, just keep going, skip Paladin for humans for now, and maybe when I get after Barbarian, I'll do Paladin then. So, let's see. Monks. So today I'm going to do monks. I should probably lower that down. Monks are pretty cool. I mean, when you think of monks, you know, monks. So they have some, you know, they use ki energy, usually heavily trained. Pretty dope. So, like I always do, I do a good aligned, a neutral aligned, and evil aligned. So for the human monk good aligned, I went Way of the Sun Soul. I'm actually currently playing a monk in my Monday game. Although I'm not a human, I am a lobster thing, like a humanoid lobster, which is a lot of fun. And we actually just made 3rd level. We have not yet gotten into a fight, so I haven't been able to shoot light energy out of my claws, like a pistol shrimp. But I'm pretty excited for when I get to. So, like it says, they are able to channel life energy into light energy. So kind of turning the life energy ki into kind of radiant. I believe it's radiant. Yeah, radiant energy, which is pretty cool. So for the good aligned, for the Sun Soul, it's kind of similar to my character. My character is a guild artisan. So this monk was I'm leaving a bit of leeway with some of the backgrounds now, just because I don't want to get too strict into it. Be like, this happened, you know. You're like, I don't want my character. I don't want this to have happened, but I like most of it. So something happened. Maybe their village was attacked, and you know the parents weren't able to escape, or maybe the parents were, you know, refugees from a war or something, and they came upon this monastery, and they actually joined the monastery, and so their child is raised inside this monastery. That I like this idea, because you know, your character doesn't always have to have a tragic backstory. I mean, it doesn't have to be like, oh, all the parents are dead, and he's trying to hunt the killer of his parents, and that's his lifelong motivation. It doesn't have to be. So anyway, kind of adopted. Parents were adopted by this monastic order. My character belonged to the order of the Monastery of the Kraken before it was destroyed. So that doesn't have to apply here. So this character grew up in this monastery, and it's very enlightened. You know, there's different worshippers, because you know it's a place of learning and thinking for oneself. So this character actually follows Lathander. Kind of got introduced to Lathander, you know, being the god of the sun, you know, the light, essentially, and kind of started worshipping that. We learned about the Way of the Sun Soul, kind of focused their life in that direction. Because usually when you build a character, I mean, you don't have to pick what your archetype is going to be, but at least then you can kind of work it so it makes sense. So you're not just randomly picking up. Be like, oh yeah, I've been using axes this whole time, but suddenly I'm going to go into Arcane Archer. Yeah, that's the direction I'm going. Like, okay, I mean you can, but it seems kind of weird that your character would suddenly just shift. So I usually like building the background that kind of leads up to whatever my archetype is going to be, or at least something that makes sense in that direction, so it's not polar opposites. So learned about Lathander, is a worshipper of Lathander. So I mean, at some point you could even multi-class take cleric levels in Lathander, for Lathander, but or any light god. I'm playing in the Forgotten Realms, so I'm sure there are sun gods in other realms. So just you can kind of shift and pick. If you're in Dragonlance or Eberron or Greyhawk, you could pick whatever light or sun god they have in that realm. And so but this monastery, they train, they're monks, so they train to fight, and that, but they also see the use of other disciplines. You know, their martial discipline and intellectual discipline, but also producing things. So they actually are a monastery of crafters. All of them are crafters. You know, the highest ranking ones are master crafters, maybe in multiple different styles. So they can craft armor, they craft weapons, they craft anything. I mean, you could look at the, let me see if I can pull it up in equipment. Trade goods? No. Might have gone too far. Yep. Tools. There we go. Like, I mean, you know, you get to pick. No, I have to go back to the background because I'm just hopping around. Oh, cool. Thanks, buddy. Thanks for all that. I appreciate it. Guild Artisan. It says you build. You know, it's more like you're a Guild Artisan, like you're part of a Trader's Guild. But the variant is your guild merchant. No, this is you build. Either way, you can go that, or actually you can also go clan crafter. You don't necessarily, like, maybe there are some monks. Some of them are dwarves. Maybe it's because, you know, monasteries are usually out of the way. It could be, you know, on a mountain, and there are some dwarves that kind of, there's a friendly relationship between the dwarves, and so and they respect the fact that these humans, or this monastic order are an order of crafters, or it can even be a dwarven monastery, which would be really weird but really cool all at the same time. Either way, your character is kind of you're a crafter, and so part of your being is you kind of have two goals. You want to master all of the crafts that you can, learn every type of crafting, and master it so that you can be this all-around kind of master crafter. But also martial. You want to go out, and so that's kind of what happens is, you know, you reach, you're of age, you've gained your proficiency in whatever crafting you decide you're going to be good at, and so, you know, like every time it starts at level 1. This is level 1. I mean, you could start characters higher level, and you're kind of going out into the world, and so maybe that's how you run into the group. Maybe there's a nearby city. Or maybe you kind of had wandered for a while. Apparently my monk wandered for roughly 2 years and 1,500 miles to find before the game started, so I'm super far away from where my monastery was. So you can kind of come upon whatever city, and that's kind of, you join the group maybe. Or maybe, you know, if there's other players that, maybe one of the other characters is playing a dwarf, you could justify that you're kind of friends, like you befriended each other. You know, you showed up, like, because dwarves are usually a bit older when they go adventuring, so maybe that could happen, or, you know, anything. Maybe it's near an elven woods, and so it's kind of work with it. It's always nice when characters already know each other coming into a game. But yeah, that's kind of that the way of the Sun Soul. You know, you want to master martial arts while also mastering crafting, because then you're kind of an all-around, very well-rounded. So for the neutral-aligned one, I went with Way of the Four Elements. So because it's neutral-aligned, it's Way of the Four Elements, and I actually went with the Outlander background. So when Way of the Four Elements is, think kind of like the Avatar from the Last Airbender, or Korra. I never watched Korra, but same kind of concept. You have the ability to manipulate, using your ki, different elements. So it's very much like benders, you know, earth benders, water benders. So you don't necessarily have to be the Avatar, because you can only, you know, you only do rock, but you have the potential to do multiple elements. And the Outlander is, you know, you grew up outside of civilization. So the whole thing is that, a little tragic. So your father and mother, your mother actually died during childbirth. Your father is actually raising you, and he's actually a monk, because, you know, usually you could go out and learn by yourself, and depending on how old you are, it might make sense, or what race you are. But I think going out and just somehow learning all of these things without a teacher is feasible, but doesn't seem as likely. I mean, even if your teacher could be something else. It doesn't have to be human. You could have a teacher in the woods that kind of guides you. Maybe you're alone in the wilderness. But that's not how this one goes. You're raised by your father. He is kind of like he's a monk, you know, and he kind of wanted to escape civilization because he's one with the elements. He's a he's follows that way of the four elements monastic tradition. So he kind of raises you. You're out in the wilderness, surviving out in the wilderness, hunting and gathering and building and kind of learning about the elements. And out there you learn. I like the idea because it's neutral. So you're kind of more understanding of how nature is. Nature can be brutal but beautiful. You know, a pack of wolves killing a deer. Most people would try to save the deer, but then if the deer doesn't get killed, then those wolves die, and then if the wolves die, then the deer population explodes. Like, it's a whole thing. There's balance, and that's kind of the four elements. There's radiant and necrotic and psychic and stuff, but just on the basic of there aren't necessarily 100% planes to those. The Shadowfell is, but plane of fire, elemental plane of fire, elemental plane of water, elemental plane of air, earth. So you kind of are very zen. So it'll be a little harder to play because you're like, why would I go out and do this? But maybe because you see, maybe your father died finally. He finally passed away or something, or maybe learning it all and you had some teenage angst or teenage rebellion and you ran away. This is kind of you rebelling and running off on your own. And maybe you're like, why would we do this? And be like, well, because these goblins are attacking this thing. And so you don't have to be, obviously your character's going to help you. There's no reason to have the character in a game if you're not going to do anything. You're like, why would I help these goblins, or why would I hurt these goblins? They're just doing what they do. This is how nature works. And you could play it like that, be like, yeah, but they're attacking these other people. They're killing innocent people. They're not killing, other animals or other things. They're slaughtering children. And you're trying to, generally that's evil. So you're maybe, nature isn't evil. So I guess that would be nature isn't evil. Wolves eat deer. Deer eat grass. It's like that's nature in it inherently isn't evil. It is what it is. But good and evil, that's kind of different. So see goblins attack, you're like, it's ruining the balance. If they let these people, they're not harming anybody. They're doing their thing. They're kind of in balance. They have a farm. They're building. They're doing their thing. They're not harming anybody. Goblins come in and attack this village or whatever. That's harming things. So, but that could go the other way too. If there's a goblin who's doing nothing, or half orc or an orc who merely existing, but there is a guard who thinks he's with some prejudice, good aligned, but still has some prejudice against orcs or tieflings. You would stand in the way. You'd be like, you may be good, but you're doing you're doing bad things. Your prejudice is blinding you to things. So you kind of be very zen about things. Doesn't mean you can't get emotional, but you kind of try to see things. So this might be a little bit harder for some people, but you try to see things from kind of an outside balance perspective. So that's kind of where that character comes from. And then third and finally is the evil one. Is the human. I went with the shadow background. Way of the Shadow. It's actually right there. How convenient. It's very much like if you played 3rd edition, it's like the Shadow Dancers or whatnot, or ninjas. So, what is it? I also went with Urban Bounty Hunter. Okay, not that one. Urban Bounty Hunter. So the whole thing is that essentially, your dad bailed. Your dad's a scumbag. Knocked your mom up. maybe your mom worked in a brothel. It doesn't 100% matter. Kind of, it's a bit tragic. So it can go. Maybe your dad died. Maybe there was a war. He got called off the war and he died, or he was killed in an alleyway. Actually, it'd be even more interesting considering the character concept if it was the organization that your mom owed money to that killed him and then absorbed you into it. But the whole thing is, it's kind of, think like the Yakuza. Your mom owed money. She owed a debt, and so they kind of abducted you guys. They don't. It doesn't have to be both of you. Maybe they killed your mom too. Maybe they killed your dad, and then your mom couldn't pay the debt, so they killed her and abducted you and kind of forced you into this organization, this shadow gang, as it were, the Foot Clan, Fist and Foot Clan. Makes sense. And so you grew up kind of with this ideology of this monastic order that kind of works in the shadows, and they do. I think if you look at it, they do bad things. Like you can be like a thieves guild, or so it's kind of, you can kind of play with it, work with the GM, or if you're the GM, you can kind of expand upon it. But I like it that it's like an organized crime syndicate, but it's monks instead. I mean, there could be thieves, rogues as part of it, so it would make sense if your character went monk rogue at some point. But this doesn't necessarily, you don't necessarily have to. But I mean, some of the abilities paired up with a rogue would actually be really nasty. Or Way of the Shadow monk with assassin rogue and Gloomstalker ranger. You'd be just a beast, because I mean, with at level 6 you can shadow step, so you can teleport. So if you're in the Underdark with at level 6, you can essentially teleport as your bonus action. Yeah, and that has no limits. You can teleport behind somebody. I would argue that they can't see you. You're effectively invisible to them, so they don't know you're there. You get sneak attack. Boom. So, good combination. But no, you just going. I get excited for things. Going just Way of the Shadow. You're kind of a ninja or whatnot. And that's why it kind of fits into urban bounty hunter. So, you kind of became who got you. You're a bounty hunter. You hunt the people that owe money to the organization that you work for. And maybe that ties in with joining the group that you join. Maybe they're hunting this person, or they're going to this city, and you understand that maybe it's in a different city. So you're in, let's say, Waterdeep, and you have to go to Cormyr or something to do this, and that's far away, and you're like, I could do this on my own, but maybe this is your first mission, this is your first job. You've been trained a bit, you've gone on some missions with other ranks, higher ranking people, but this is your first mission, and so you kind of join a group because that's the direction you're going. I mean, and then maybe stuff goes sideways and you decide to just run off with them, but you still have this. You're still evil. You don't mind crossing the line. You'll kill people. So I mean, but where it goes from there, kind of depends on the game and depends on the player. But at least this is a start. You're a trained bounty hunter. You're just doing your job, and maybe you're still evil, but you find out that they're the reason your father died, which is the reason your mom owed the debt, and they killed your mother, and now you hate them. You're still evil, and you're gonna wipe them all out. You're not. I mean, although it could be a redemption thing, and maybe you realize this, and you can alignment shift, and you shift to maybe neutral or neutral good as part of as part of your own personal campaign or story arc. But, or not, maybe you don't care, and you're like, I don't care, they killed them, fuck it, they were weak, so I'm gonna kill people, because it's fun. You hunt down people, you capture them, you bring them back for money. That's what you do. Maybe you take a couple jobs, maybe hunting, bigger monsters is more exciting, it doesn't, and it gets you some money, and then maybe, you want to run the organization at some point, so you're like, I could be part of that organization. This actually would also work if you were in a game that was entirely city-based as well. If your party's just in the city, you have your bounties. Maybe they're not always there, so maybe you just join up with some people to kill some time while you're not doing anything. So there's a lot of options for a character like this. So that's it. I'm sorry. So that's it for monks. I hope you liked it. Next week should be fighters. I've already actually started working on that. Got some ideas for that. Have to figure out neutral, but I already have good and evil. So it'll be kind of fun. So thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe to these. So you comment, like, and comment. If you want me to do a video, I mean, if you want me to do Human Paladin, I can do Human Paladin, but, you know, you can always just go look at Half Orc and kind of rework Half Orc. And kind of see how that goes into Human. Or, I mean, I could do Human Paladin. Or maybe you're like, I want to be an Elven Wizard, or an Elven this, or a Dwarven Cleric, or a half-elf Shatterkai, because, you know, with the half-elf with the Shatterkai bloodline, Undying Warlock. Maybe that's the direction you want to go. You know, there's a lot of choices, so if you want inspiration, let me know. Yeah. So don't forget to hit the bell to get notifications about when I post my new videos, and when they come out, which is pretty much every day. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time. Cav out.